Right, we're back. I don't think there are many... Oh, that city doesn't have a swine herd yet? That's weird. Thought I would already have sent one there, but... I don't know, sometimes things happen. They get in the way. Lumber mill. Even more experience. Honestly, let's get Sphinx. Having the ability to upgrade would be very nice. Okay, keep exploring. Just try to be careful while doing so. The last thing I need is for you to lose against a stack of 6 frigates. Because yes, that's running around with 18 base strength. The only reason why the ship is fine is because it has like 3 stacks of sophistication. And combat 6. So it still has a higher base. So it ends up still having a higher combat ability than the others. But still. Why are you heading this way? I get there's land to explore, but it's the rest of the coastline too. It'll get the job done. The automation just sometimes is very silly on what it thinks the priority should be. Okay, no production, science, we've got the anatomy lab, and that knowledge inheritance implies that I need... Yeah. Sewer system. Okay. Once the Lyceum is built, I can bypass a lot. And I can start focusing on the cheaper buildings. So that it's, well, at a reasonable location. Pretty sure I actually have all the amphibian. Yeah, on this continent. Also, what was discovered? Fish. Okay, I know there's still spots without the amphibian pond. So... Alright, no maintenance costs. Okay, swine herd. Okay, what do I need? Books. Books. Requires paper. Do I not even have paper? That would actually explain a lot, wouldn't it? Okay, what building produces paper? That's a toll house. That doesn't give me anything since I don't actually do foreign trade. There's the paper maker. Let's build that first. Okay. So I can't make books because I never bothered making any paper. Oh boy. Writing on scrolls the entire time. When it turns out that the scrolls weren't good enough for the printing press. Okay, I can skip a lot of these. Yeah. Because I do want to set up a new set of units for another city. I can easily afford cities now, so. Okay, dock worker and settler. The thing is, the flute has, I believe, 5 cargo space? Yeah, 5 cargo space. I don't know why it wasn't showing up. Yeah, there it is. It just didn't have the dot in front of it, so I didn't actually see it. Yeah, it's 5 cargo space, so I won't have any problems handling it. Ooh, a map. Let's see, lake in here. I have a lot of tribal villages. Yeah, this place is unexplored. I don't know. Nandwai might actually be a former civ. Because once I conquered Ethiopia... Okay, no, it's still here, so... That actually is probably a... Yeah, that's just a barb city. Okay. Yeah, that does actually make it easy. It's weird what buildings you're missing. Okay. You don't have an actual source of fresh water, so you do not only need the sewer system, you also need the aqueduct. Oh, and I should set up a butchery, and the fisherman's hut's too useful to ignore. Carry and gather. So are mountains considered impassable anymore? Nope, not at all. Still costs 6. Yeah, movement costs 6. Every one of these. Wow. That is extremely rough. No camps. Rubber. Fine, I'll remove the jungle. At least this tile can be turned into a lumber mill. Produced by Kailua.
You can get more of what you want with a kind word and a gun than you can with just a kind word.
Sadly, it obsoletes Archimedes' workshop. Did build that, right? Yeah. Do I still get the +1? No, I don't think I get the +1 from engineers anymore. Sad. Shrimp. Squash. Hey, I can build a lumber mill here. Neat. That will certainly help Alofi. With even more production. Paved roads, I guess. There's the Lyceum. And I can build a printer's workshop. Finally! And that will give me books that will unlock more buildings. Why do I need to press enter for this? So yeah, gunpowder. Perhaps I should talk about that. Gunpowder is a pretty big deal. Because it kind of revolutionized warfare, but it took a very long time for it to do that. This might take a bit of explaining. Okay, so I do need a Grammaticus. Wait, let me see here. I need a sewer system. City does not actually have fresh water, not directly on the tile, so. I'll leave the rest of its queue to later. Let me handle the city's development, please. So yeah, gunpowder is actually a lot older than you might think. The first instances of use of the explodey powder is a couple thousand years ago in China. These were mainly used for decorative fireworks. Ooh, I can build 2 more lumber mills here. Neat. Of course, as with anything, there were attempts to leverage these fireworks into war, but, well, fireworks are hard to make so that they fire accurately, and this accuracy gets worse and worse the further off from the vertical that you are. So a bit like early artillery, actually. You just lob something damaging in a direction that you hoped would deal the most damage. And they usually work best against a stationary or massed target. Of course, as a result, this didn't see very much use. And for ranged weapons, the East Asia stuck with bows for at least another 1,000 years. Definitely longer. I can mine cobalt now. Oh yeah, cobalt's a new resource. Rabbits. Fights cobalt. Requires sulfur in the vicinity. Ah. Sulfur and stone. Okay. The combination of having sulfur and stone in the same city allows me to produce cobalt. Neat. Still need to build a Lyceum though. Okay, where's the sewer system? Already built. City lacks fresh water though. So aqueduct it is. And then printers workshop. There we go. Yeah. This is of course to be expected considering how volatile those fireworks can be. And also because the sort of skill and knowledge required to create the boomstick is still well a ways away because you need, well, it's similar to the steam engine that you need a sufficiently high caliber of precision in metalworking that people at the time were just unable to get. It was just too plain difficult. Because you needed to create a tube of metal that can hold a projectile close enough so that a smidge of air can pass through, but very, very little, so that most of the explosion is contained behind the projectile. Also, you needed a mechanism for lighting the gunpowder from the outside, but also creating enough of a seal so that the blowback doesn't go back, so that the resulting explosion doesn't blow back into the shooter's face or loader's face. And so it took over 1,000 years for anyone to figure out how to make artillery cannons, which started appearing, I think, in the 1300s. Yeah, in the 1300s they started appearing. They were junk, though. But eventually they did manage to outpace the superior siege engine. And well, everything has its day, and things must become obsolete eventually. Yeah, sulfur is needed for good gunpowder. Castle drawbridge, donkey mill, oxen mill, street cleaner, theater. Artesian wheel. Pasta make shop, watermill. Castle gatehouse just in case. I might as well go through the necessities. Before doing another pair. I think that should be the last of them. Actually, I think I'll set up a hunter to handle the area. There shouldn't be that many barbs, I don't think. It's probably going to be okay. Okay. A warden, and how about you build a... Okay, so there's a sloop of war. A flute first. How's the terrain down here? Heavily forested. Okay. Decoys. I don't think there are very many throwing units remaining anyway. Yeah, gunpowder. Yeah, that's when the first artillery cannons started appearing. Believe me, it took a while. But that was when metalworking started to become good enough for some actual precision work. Which is astonishingly good. If you can get precision work going, that's a gateway to so much more. Oh, that's why it stopped reading this. Sometimes the keyboard is quite annoying. I may need to... yeah. But it works well enough under most situations. I think it's fine for now. I may need to check on replacing its batteries, though. Of course, it didn't take long after the big cannons appeared for the smaller hand cannons to start coming around. Again, there weren't very many of these, but... and they were shoddily made. Like, really shoddy. There is a reason why they still used bows more than 100 crossbows more than 100 years after the guns were first introduced. Bows are great for precision. Guns were anything but precise, at least the early ones. They were just atrocious. It was difficult to ensure that they actually hit the target because so many of the tricks for better accuracy either just weren't thought up of, like, best way to put it would probably be, how to put this, so they either weren't thought of, like sights to help you aim, weren't capable of doing yet, like producing high quality tubes that not only are extremely straight, but also didn't heat up, well, didn't grow softer with heat and sag. That was a potential problem with firing a gun too many times. Or they couldn't do either. Neither thought of, nor had the manufacturing capability to actually be able to do. Like rifling. That one took a while. Rifling is incredibly effective, but it's a bit of a mixed bag. Because what it does is that it forces the thing to spin, the projectile. This made it incredibly accurate. But it took a long while, but it had the drawback of exchanging some of the forward momentum with angular momentum, so it had less hitting force. Which was a bit of a problem, but not as much as you might think. You don't really need that much hitting force for a bullet to be effective, at least against soft targets like, I don't know, people. And this was especially important during the early days of guns when they were really, really weak. Like, I'm already complaining about shoddy manufacturing being a problem with those, and they certainly were. But there were other aspects that were pretty bad about it. So, the very idea of bulletproof armor seems like an impossibility nowadays, but it actually was pretty common back then, because guns were just that bad. Part of armor making in the very end of the Middle Ages was to test how effective it was by shooting a bullet at it at an angle. If it was effective, it would bounce off with a little dent in the armor and show that so long as you weren't directly hit, the armor would save your life. So long as it was shot at an angle, the bullet could easily save your life. The armor could easily save your life from the bullet. Of course, such a concept is really hard to do nowadays. Tanks kind of can, at least against regular bullets, but that's why there's such thing as armor-piercing rounds. Yeah. Still, that goes way off into the future. But yeah. Guns were hard to use effectively in warfare because of that. But mass fire was still pretty effective and could do a huge amount of damage very quickly in a way that needed much less training. And I don't remember what I even wanted to build here, really. I got the Lyceum out at least. Yeah. Which is what led to the rise of uh, mixed infantry armies. No,
I weigh the man, not his title. 'Tis not the king's stamp that can make the metal better.
Causeway, and the foundry, which replaces the forge, and also the Star Fort. That's not a big deal. Okay, let's go for astronomy. Navigation? Nah, weather forecasting. Get me even more signs from the weather vanes. Yeah, the that led to mixed armies of it took a long time, like late 1500s for this to happen. But this eventually led to, I think they're called tercio style infantry, where it was a 50-50 mix of firearms that went to the front to fire, and then they fell back to reload, while pikemen stood in front in order to guard the infantry from cavalry charges, as well as maybe holding shields in order to protect from, you know, arrows or more other people's gunfire. Until they have reloaded and were ready to fire again. With, you know, pretty much the expected results. Of course, this changed once an amazing innovation took place that, again, required some level of metallurgical skill to manage. Specifically, the ability to fit something over the end of a metal tube without getting in the way of the bullet, but also without sliding down the gun. Shoot, I forgot the name of it. Those triangular things that you put at the end of a musket to turn it so that you can use it. A bayonet. Yes, the bayonet. The bayonet basically allowed the infantry armies to become fully focused on wielding guns because the troops at the front can defend themselves. I believe this led to the rise of the line infantry, because guns still took a long time to reload, especially the long ones, because they were all muzzle loaders. So you had to put the bullet in, you had to pour the gunpowder in, place the bullet in the tube, and then shove it down with a stick to make sure that it was at the bottom and could receive the brunt of the explosion with a minimal cushion of air. So that the air didn't absorb it. Which would cause problems. Believe me, that would cause problems. So this still took like a minute of effort to get through. And for obvious reasons, this isn't something you want to do too much, so... Still can't believe none of the printers' workshops have finished yet. Okay, can we finally get that out of the way? I'd like to have a theater somewhere. Causeway, sulfur mine. And that may be a wonder. Sure, let's build the Great Wall. I want that +1 production from engineers. And the Great Wall never goes obsolete, so that bonus is forever kept. Sure, it's kind of useless since there are not ever going to be any barbs spawning on this continent again. Perhaps I could have saved it for the next continent. But I don't want to risk the possibility of someone else building it, so... Great, I can't found on a peat bog. Really is the case. That's annoying. This spot would have been perfect to get every bit of the island. Great. I don't want to... Perhaps I should sit on the stone. Fine. Remember, stupidly long time to reload, so... They took turns being at the front. The ones at the front fired, then fell all the way to the back. No, actually no, they stood in a line, fired, reloaded, it took a while, but they were able to get to it, and then volleyed fire. A single person was unlikely to hit anything, but it wasn't necessary for any one of them to hit when you had hundreds of guns firing at the same time. You take a nap. Keep the city under control. You do your thing. The mower was true. It'll take a while for it to build up. But it will build up. Don't you worry about it. The biggest problem is that it doesn't actually have a trade connection with the rest of the world, from what I can tell. Oh, yeah, okay, so that's gonna be a bit harder. Yeah, okay. Move to here and build a road. I need to ensure that no wild animals attack the worker, because that would be bad. Once a hunter has reasonably cleared out the island, it should be safe to have a worker around, since it's incredibly unlikely for any of the newly spawned animals to actually attack a worker. Even if it's just sitting there undefended, so... Hey, snake bit. Okay. Build a road. This will take a few turns, but it's pretty important. The goal is to take down animals. Well, I found Krakatoa, which is nice because there are no volcanoes that I found yet, which is required to make waterproof cement. Not make, even research the possibility. It is the only tech that actually has a requirement. Oh. Oh, there's an actual volcano here. Nice. I just need to figure out where Krakatoa was discovered. Honestly, more out of curiosity than anything else. to do that, I need to figure out where my ship has gone. Obviously, I have to be a spot where I have vision. But beyond that, it's really kind of unknowable. The military advisor can tell me. Caravel, down here. That close? I wasn't even looking. Yeah, it's right here. Of course, it ends up spawning so far away that I can't actually place a city next to it. Woo. I need bricks to build a menagerie. Okay. Foundry. Just workshop. Oh, I still need to build a Lyceum. Okay, you have fresh water, so you just need the sewer system. Oh, look, billboard. There it is. Just workshop. Bones are raw meat. Yeesh. Don't need Lyceum. Okay. Neat. But yeah. The other aspect of gunpowder is how it's just simplified warfare. There are a lot of unit types. Not just the very, you know. Okay, there was a lot to it, but a lot of aspects of warfare got simplified. I mean, the very concept of unit typing exists because of this. It makes for good games and helps get the idea across of how things worked. Like, for example, the different kinds of... Oh, I can build lava rocks. Yeah, Mount Fuji counts as a volcano. Okay, so I can in fact do the lava rock thing. It's pretty late, but it's still doable. Heck, so early it's reasonable to do. Okay. Mount Fuji first. Wonder of nature. Provides pumice stone. Okay, so it exists but doesn't actually do anything. Perhaps it did something in the past, or was planned to do something, but Just a bit of bloat, I guess. But yeah, there are a lot of unit types to consider. Ranged, light infantry, heavy infantry, light cavalry, heavy cavalry. The various types waxed and waned over history, but ever since the development of armor, the concept of these units didn't change. Okay, so that wasn't enough to start setting up trade. I need to have access. If the city doesn't have access, then there's problems. And for a long time, those were the unit types, at least on land. Or at least the unit roles. Light infantry were effective against cavalry, generally, because they could move enough to counter a cavalry charge and often carried pikes. Heavy infantry was more oriented towards attacking light infantry, as well as defending themselves effectively against archers, ranged units. The archers, the ranged units, were focused on attacking at a distance, being extremely effective against light infantry and reasonably effective against heavy infantry, while the cavalry was there to deal with the ranged units and had a fairly effective matchup against heavy infantry. Gunpowder simplified things greatly by making the ranged class so effective against heavy infantry that it collapsed as a very concept. It faded away. Pretty much, and was pretty much gone until the infantry support tank was developed. Which itself was a bit of a big deal. It was as if something basically made it so that fighter jets were completely useless today, and were just generally ignored for a century. Never actually developed. Okay, +7 from here, so the effective amount is like 4 turns. Yeah, that's about it. Okay. Not even. Oh, it'll be 4 turns for this. For this thing? Well, it'll have to be 2.5, so I'll just build it first. This will be 3. So I'll build those, then the treadmill crane, then the straw gatherer, and then the guild hall. The apprentice workshop, 6 turns. Efficiency, so get these through, and then it's this. The bronze, there's no stone quarry, so bronze smith is 11, and the cash builder is 22. The lumber mill's the same, because there's no prime timber presence. This is 5 turns and 36, so I'd say 7. 7 turn efficiency. Yeah, okay, so bronzesmith works. Same with iron and platinum. I'll take the coffee shop and the concrete mason, but that's it. Then I do the foundry. And then brick mason, leadsmith, charcoal burner, coppersmith, oil lamps, tar refinery, oxen farm, marble quarry, warehouse, candle maker. Then lumber mill, and yeah, okay. Tinsmith, steel smelter, steel smith. Oh, I forgot about the carriage. Okay, undo all that. No, wait. Something feels off. Okay. Canoe builder. These. Foundry. Apprentice workshop, then foundry. No. Canoe builder. Then the apprentice workshop. Then these farms. I'm gonna need a minute. Something broke in my head. And let's see, 7 turns. Yeah, okay. Right? No. Yes, actually. As long as it's less than 15 turns for 2, then okay, it works. Right? Yeah. Then the carriage builder. Then we start doing these. Then we get 10, then, no, that's steel smelter. Okay. Then through here. Then these. This too. How much does this cost? Okay, all the way up to 14, which nothing costs that much anymore. That would be good. Huh, okay. Now to prep up for that, I need water access, which the city lacks. So I need sewer system and aqueduct. Then the Lyceum is available. Should be available. Yeah, it's got access to the trade network because it's coastal. Atafu completely lacks a coastline, so... Which I'm mildly annoyed by, but this was his best spot, second best spot. Otherwise it's too far away to really effectively use every tile. Even now it's gonna have a bit of problem for a while. Okay, build the road network here. Foxes, the snake's the one that's pretty dangerous, and hopefully it doesn't attack while it's in a weakened state. Huh. But yeah, that's the first thing gunpowder did. Then with the concept of the... Well, with the... what was it called again? The bayonet. Suddenly, light infantry and range became the exact same unit. So warfare collapsed down to an interplay between... well, cavalry, well, and infantry, mostly. The thing is, at this point, artillery actually became effective enough to actually become a part of battlefield combat, rather than just a siege weapon. It just managed to become that accurate and destructive, even against non-stationary targets, which is a fairly big deal. And that's honestly, yeah. So, in other words, gunpowder took a situation that was, at least on the battlefield, 4 different unit types, plus a 5th support group that was for dealing with sieges, and specifically for dealing with fortifications, and collapsed it down into 3 useful unit types, all of which had clearly defined rules and were pretty heavily standardized between the countries because they quickly figured out what was effective and what wasn't. Because of the simple way guns were made. So yeah, it revolutionized how warfare was handled and had a massive impact. Okay, I need to set up the city for a Lyceum. It's President of the University yet. Do you have water access? Not at all. Okay, that explains. Yeah, well, that I didn't build the sewers yet, so. In fact, I probably should build some of the simpler disease reducers, because I think the city might have a disease problem. I don't have to look to have that understand. And now I can build a Middle Eastern CL. Eat. That was the entire point of waiting so long on Constantinople. Okay, so University Sewer System Aqueduct. Yeah, okay. Right foundry's at the top. Of course, this later got complicated by um, the motorization of infantry, which really began blurring the line between cavalry and infantry. Like, seriously, blurred it to an astonishing degree. Making it a bit difficult to tell what exactly, who was what role. Not to mention the infantry support tanks bringing back heavy infantry for a while. I thought there was also just the general diversification of tanks, which brought back a lot of things. Heavy cavalry, for one, which, by the way, fell out as a favor, because I didn't mention this, but as guns became tougher and more stronger and more accurate, armor became more and more useless, so most cavalry just stopped bothering with armor after by the I think the mid 1800s. So yeah, the heavy cavalry rule was gone until medium tanks came back, as well as heavy tanks that could move at a reasonably fast pace. You know, for battlefield conditions. There, Atafu can now trade. That should at least bolster a bit its abilities. I could swear this is a quote that was also used in Civ 6. Maybe Civ 5? Maybe. Okay. At least expands my options. And greatly increases the base productivity of the city. Hawking Hut. Even with a platinum ore, the lumber mill's just plain better, but I'll still build the mine. The lumber mill. Oh, I wish I could build you in just every single tile. Because you just have that much quality. Don't worry, I'm sure once the shaft mine appears, it's gonna become better for production at least, again. Toka should have a good bit more production now. And then the creation of military aircraft turned the warfare world upside down again. But I think I can save that particular story for much, much later. You know, around the time when we actually get aircraft. Oh, I actually found the sewer system. And you're built next to water, so I don't need to build an aqueduct. Well, not immediately. Oh man, I want to build the gondola system eventually, unless they already... When did you build an aqueduct? When did I get you to build an aqueduct? Okay, so it didn't matter in the first place. Yeah, we're approaching end of session enough. So, maybe I'll rant about Renaissance next time, or just do another quieter session. Focusing on other things. Because I can certainly play faster when I'm not ranting. On the other hand, it does feel that the time goes by a lot faster when I do too. So, because talking about something that interests me is fun. Who would have thunk? Actually, I should handle those now that... At least some of these. First divvy these up, and let me make decisions on each one. Skip that one for the moment. Dock kennels. Sure. There we go. Bear. Wolf enclosure. There we go. Hunting dog trainer. There. I think I'll go for the next great person and stop it there. Of course, that means that we've only researched a couple techs, but 3 techs, but the game's slowing down as it is. Not just the automatic time where nothing happens to me anyway, but also how fast I'm moving along. Pickard. Simply because of the sheer number of cities involved. The decision making is becoming more and more difficult to deal with. And while I can keep up, I can't do that forever. How's the city doing with crime? Pretty poorly. Okay then, we're building a guardhouse. That should solve all problems for a long while. Means I can build some of these. I don't think I need to starve for it, so let's just stick with the basic castle. Oh, there's the pub, okay. Yeah. Let's build the orphanage to make up for the pub. Ugh, the fact that I said it in that order, in that way, in the same sentence, has so many implications. And I find it hilarious. Okay. I'm not sure if this is going to be the final one, because there might be room for a city up here, but I don't know if I want to do that. Hmm. Place it up here. Yeah, okay, let's put it on this side. I'll commit to building a city up there. Would have preferred to have Mola remains, but if need be, I'll do the Ratite herd because that one's harder to obtain. Okay, the observatory is about to be unlocked in 12 turns, so no thank you. I'll skip that for now. Food-wise, do we have the... Yes, okay. Wanted to make sure we had the butchery. Just need to wait 10 more turns. Yeah, I think I've explored most of the oceans already. That one ship can do so much, that old exploration ship. I think I've explored much of the seas. Yeah, that's pretty much all that's left, isn't it? At least of water. Yep, just these portions. It's a little bit up here that can be reached by ship that hasn't been explored yet. It's mostly these areas. Ignore this little bit, that's the moon. I should not be able to see that. Though admittedly, it doesn't really matter that much. I'll be able to eventually see all of it anyway. That's all penguins, that's a tapir. Neither is particularly dangerous. There's so much woodland here, I think it's fine if I build 1 or 2 food improvements. I'm just wondering if I can manage to do 8 turns in 10 minutes or less. Zebra herd. That's fine. Ignore the penguin. It's not doing anything. Flint gatherer and... Oh yeah, I can't actually build a lumber camp. Because there are no forests nearby, close enough, so... For now, just build a driftwood gatherer. Then the mining camp. Jeez, with geology, that thing's gonna start exploding into relevance again. It's basically an early engineering school. An engineering school that comes up earlier. I am not removing the lumber mill. The mushroom gatherer is just terrible. Okay. Oh, copy. Nice. No, I still can't do anything with you. It does mean I can start making even more enclosures. Causeway. Salmon. Water trove, fisherman's hut. How's I'm doing on crime? Good. Disease. Better. Already built the Lyceum, so that's not a problem. Neat. Tattooer. Fresco mural. Kava plantation. Craft set. Mushroom gatherers. Furniture maker. Sage. Scarecrow. Fishmonger. Farms. I guess we can stick with the garderobe. Bread. These. Trainer. Shrine. That's all. No, I already have a Coliseum unlocked, so there's no reason to build the arena. No, 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 no. We're not building the Loan Shark. Yeah, let's stop it for there with that city. It's a long queue. Even if each building takes like 2 to 4 turns, that's still a lot of turns. If I get every city to try building everything, I won't be able to build any wonders. Snow Leopard Tail. How am I able to make a folklore in that city? It doesn't even have any customs. Probably doesn't matter much. Code 3. Be annoying. Okay, forge, foundry, clay pit, gondola canals. Celestium already been built, or? Did I actually build the... Yes. Something else is missing from the city and I don't know what. Perhaps they just haven't been built yet. Wait, I need a Grammaticus, but I've already built that. Bricks, marble. Sewer system, freshwater, bricks. Perhaps I just got the fresh water. Yeah. That might be it. Yeah, I don't think there are any dangerous animals left on the island, so that's good. This worker can do its job. No problem at all. See finally, book publisher. Steel. Officium or Modern Office? Okay, I finally have a reason to build that. Okay. I might get a great scientist. Or a great engineer. Those are the two most likely options. Account for 60% of the probability. I might get some of the others though. It's difficult to tell what exactly will end up being. Which is actually quite nice. I like having a bit of variation. Okay. Time to build a lighthouse then. Ooh, turkey. Oh, at this rate, I'll get astronomy at the same time as I get the great person. Lovely. I guess my science output has sped up somewhat. Okay, next turn. And I think I won't even handle very much. It's pretty late in the recording session, so. Alright, let's see what we get. Another great scientist.
Astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads us from this world to another.
Sadly, it obsoletes multiple wonders, but including the Colossus. It was fun while it lasted. Yeah, actually, I'll do a bit of handling. Okay, no cities need anything, and that's done and all. So, I'm on my way to getting weather forecasting. And I should be able to get to navigation soonish. Oh boy, corporation. Say hello to capitalism. Although it does lead to the patent office, which, although it requires a bank, a courthouse, and a university, plus 1% science is actually quite nice. And I can also now build universities, not universities, observatories, which can give me quite a bit. Especially once I research calculus over here. That's the first of the texts that buff the observatory. Because I will have to eventually go down humanism and political philosophy and all that. It's funny that you have divine right here. The very concept is a lot older, but I digress. Maybe I can talk about it later. And I've got most of the map uncovered. This continent is utterly massive. At least I have mapped out the exterior. Some of the interior is thanks to maps from unexplored islands. course, there are parts of the map that still haven't been touched yet. The automatic systems will, of course, handle them eventually, which will be nice. And, of course, eventually I'll be able to see the whole map. It's just going to take a little while. I believe it's over here somewhere. No, further down. Yeah, satellite's all the way over here. This reveals the world map, so I'll be able to see everything, including the stuff up here. It's just a little bit of space. The little bit I can see. It goes much further, the map does. This does help see the mini map too, so it's quite nicely shaped too. It's actually pretty close to the correct shape. But yeah, as you can see on this map, this continent is actually more territory than all the land I had access to previously. So of course it does make sense for there to have been 5 civs there. But now there's only 3 there. And considering, the distance between these two, it was not on purpose. It was not the purpose of any player civ. This was done by the barbarians. And I'm sure if I looked around in the interior, or heck, even around here maybe, the barbarian cities, at least one of them will show up as another civ. Heck, these always have the legacy of conquest behind them. And they show up blue in the selector. Well, no, it shows up blue when it's a work tile. Never mind. But they always show up blue. Not blue. They always have the founder country in the parentheses. But yeah, this island is getting... Oh, great. There's a barbarian warden here. I was hoping to be able to avoid any barbarian spawns, but they just started spawning now. Great. I'm almost done filling out this continent, though. Pretty much every tile is within the reach of a city. This is one of the exceptions. Except for some stuff up here, which I plan on plopping a city down up here, too. So, there will be 5 cities here. Maybe one in the interior in the future, but I doubt it. I think this level of exploitation is reasonable. Yeah. Like, this line of 3 is out of reach of any city. Well, this one won't be if I plop a city here. It will be if I plop it here instead, but I don't see enough reason to. There's no resources here, and ice can't exactly be worked. Not yet, anyway. I believe that's something for the future. But yeah. I think I've gone on long enough. Let's go back to the pheasant here. I'll see you again next time. Until then.